I'm Attorney General Alan Wilson. It is my pleasure to be here today for this press conference. I'm here to talk about three specific cases. Two are updates, one's some new information, but it's going to underscore an incredibly important point, an issue that has been ongoing here in South Carolina for the better part of a decade. We've been talking about this issue. You'll hear about this in just a moment. But before, I would like to just go ahead and talk to you about the three cases to give you an update on the status of investigations that have been ongoing and what they are uncovering throughout South Carolina. The first case is an update on a case that goes back to 2023, and that is a case called Las Senoritas. For those of you who remember, this was a major meth trafficking investigation in the upstate. It involved targeting a cartel-supplied drug network across 6 upstate counties in South Carolina. This drug trafficking organization was run by inmates who were working with female defendants operating outside the prison system. And as some of you might remember, when we initially did a press announcement on Las Senoritas, some of these females fled to Mexico to escape prosecution here in South Carolina. Once we publicly announced Las Senoritas last year, one of those females who was working outside the prisons, coordinating using cell phones with inmates inside the prison, she made it to Mexico. She was expelled by the Mexican government once they learned about this and has since been prosecuted. Creighton, if I recall, she received 55 years in prison from that initial part of that investigation. Shockingly, this part of the Las Senoritas case was being directed by 2 inmates, DJ and Matt McCoy. They were basically running this entire part of the drug empire from behind bars with the use of illicit contraband cell phones. These brothers, Matt and DJ McCoy, coordinated the distribution of over 630 kilograms of methamphetamine from behind bars. Now, I'm going to say that again. From behind bars, they were facilitating a major meth trafficking ring. They were laundering money, and they were managing members and co-conspirators of this conspiracy. Both McCoys were tried recently over the last couple of weeks. Both were convicted and sentenced to life without parole. That's important because one other co-defendant, Randall Posey, received 25 years, and then there were 3 additional associates who pled guilty to sentences ranging from 20 to 27 years. I want to give a quick shout out to 2 of our prosecutors, Assistant Attorney General Savannah Gowd and Assistant Attorney General Walt Whitmire, who were instrumental in prosecuting these cases. This entire Las Senoritas state grand jury investigation has involved 54 indicted defendants, with 27 of them having been sent to prison. The remainder still are awaiting trial. This is significant. This case is significant for a couple of reasons. One of the co-defendants, I believe it was Matt McCoy, was due to be released. He was in prison from another case going back to 2013. That case was called Family Tradition. Both he and his brother DJ had been serving that prison sentence. They had previously been convicted in a 2013 state grand jury meth trafficking case called Family Tradition. Despite being in prison for that Family Tradition case, the McCoy brothers resumed their criminal empire while incarcerated using, word of the day, contraband cell phones. They were using these phones to continue this operation. They were so proud of what they were able to accomplish behind prison walls with the use of contraband cell phones that they had tattooed on their arms the words Family Tradition, because they were, and this is the name of the case that put them in prison. And because they were able to continue their illicit criminal activities from behind prison and facilitate a major meth trafficking operation, they got these tattoos on their arms, and now both of them have a family tradition of serving life in prison together. But what's interesting is one of those inmates, Matt McCoy, was due to be released early this fall, and now he's in prison for the rest of his life. Again, if anything needs to be underscored here, is that prison walls alone are not a barrier when inmates have access to cell phones. The McCoys weren't just participating, they were leading a massive narcotic network from behind bars. I want to go ahead and, before I move on to the next case, I do want to, I recognize Savannah Gowd, who is the lead attorney on this case. Savannah, do you want to take just a quick moment? Did you want to make a comment or two?
I would just...
Go ahead.
I would just like to thank all the law enforcement officers that were involved in the case. We had a really good team, and without the team, we couldn't get these kind of results. We see how methamphetamine destroys our communities. In this case, I believe the general said we had 54 indicted individuals. I mean, all of those people's lives have been destroyed by their drug use, and law enforcement sees that every day. And then we hope this case can send a message to deter people from this kind of criminal activity, and also to show that punishment will come.
Thank you, Savannah, and appreciate both you and Walt and the members of your team and the law enforcement agencies, which I will recognize in a few minutes, who were involved in helping that prosecution. There's another case, the second case I'm going to talk about today. We talked about Las Senoritas and the McCoys and their LWOPs, but I want to talk about the paper route case. Now, before I say anything, any individuals that I talk about who have not yet pled guilty or been convicted obviously have the presumption of innocence, and all of the conduct that I'm about to talk about is alleged at this time. But remember, they have the presumption of innocence unless they plead guilty or are proven guilty in a court of law. Paper route case. This is still an active case centering on Wayne A. Hollinshead, who, by the way, was in prison for drug trafficking from several years ago. While in prison, this inmate, Mr. Hollinshead, allegedly ran a large-scale marijuana trafficking and money laundering ring from prison using, shocker, contraband cell phones. Investigators seized approximately $1 million in illicit assets for Mr. Hollinshead, including bank accounts, crypto holdings, and large sums of cash. Mr. Hollinshead, while behind prison using cell phones, became a millionaire. The result of this investigation, Hollinshead has been indicted on major drug trafficking, money laundering, and obstruction charges, and he is obviously presumed innocent, but will be going to trial on that. This case is significant because the paper route case shows that the increasing financial sophistication of prison-run criminal enterprises. Using cell phones, using mobile phones, inmates like Hollinshead can manage complex finances, intimidate witnesses, and operate like a white-collar criminal, all while being locked up. All of this is being done from behind bars. They're becoming millionaires from behind bars. This case further underscores the need to cut their digital lifeline to the outside world. Another case, Clean Sweep. Now, this is a case that obviously has many factors to it, many components to it, but perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this case in Clean Sweep reveals how child sexual abuse was orchestrated by an inmate, Jacob Lance, from inside prison using a contraband cell phone. His alleged victim was the young daughter of a co-defendant, Abigail Eldeer, who was allegedly pleaded to multiple charges of sexual exploitation and conspiracy. This is a case in which, and by the way, Abigail Deere has pled guilty and awaits sentencing of up to life in prison. Jacob Lance is facing 31 serious felony charges, and the Attorney General's office has served notice with intent to seek life without parole. His trial will be scheduled for later this fall. But this is a case in which an inmate inside a prison communicating with a female outside of the prison was able to facilitate this woman filming sexual abuse, alleged sexual abuse of a young child. This would not have happened but for the ability of that inmate to coordinate with someone on the outside to sexually exploit a young child. And this stuff should not be happening. The cell phones are making it possible for this stuff to happen. This case shows the horrifying human toll of unchecked inmate communication. Jacob Lance allegedly used smuggled phones not just for drugs and fraud, but to direct and participate in child abuse. It is the darkest possible illustration of why access to cell phones behind prison walls has to be eliminated. This is a unified threat, and there is a clear solution. All of these cases share one single unifying threat: contraband cell phones in the hand of prison inmates. Whether it's meth trafficking, complex financial crimes, or sexual exploitation of minors, each criminal enterprise was made possible by the access that inmates had to cell phones behind prison walls. In a rare report, and we have a state grand jury report that has been published and issued by the 34th and 35th state grand juries, has urged public safety leaders to encourage Congress and the FCC to lift those restrictions. One quote that I will read from the report: and the report says, quote, jamming the cell phone communication of state inmates would immediately eliminate so much, and I would say probably 90%, of the criminal activities within our state prisons. Despite the best efforts of the South Carolina Department of Corrections and law enforcement, these phones continue to pour in or be smuggled in to either through corrupt staff, visitors, drones, or in hidden packages. Now, we have a current system. It's managed access. We kind of describe it as a whack-a-mole program. What we have sought for many, many years, and I'm going to give the director of the Department of Corrections an opportunity to talk in just a moment, but we want the ability, like prisons in the federal system, who have access to technology that allows them to put basically like an iron dome over the entire prison, so that if a cell phone goes into the prison, that inmate cannot get a cell signal. They cannot communicate outside. Because of the way the federal regulations have been written by the FCC, federal prisons are allowed to have this technology. State prisons are not allowed to have this technology. We have been allowed to use technology that is kind of a managed access, meaning the systems in place, the systems that we have right now at the Department of Corrections, not to oversimplify it, but if an inmate goes in and opens up a cell phone, that system can identify the number of that phone, or the serial number of that phone, and then within a day or two or three, can basically turn that phone into a paperweight or a brick. Basically, they can target that one phone. But then another phone will pop up, and the system will identify that phone and whack it. So you see the concept of whack-a-mole. We can whack the phones down as they pop up, but it takes a couple of days. And so while it is helpful, it is not as good as a system that would completely eliminate any cell communication from inside prison walls. And that is the problem. We have not been able to get the Congress or the FCC to allow state prisons. And here we have federal prisons 5-10 minutes away from state prisons who are doing this right now. And we can't get the FCC and Congress to basically eliminate provide access to state prisons to be able to eliminate the cell phone communications. So the call to action, it's time for Congress and the FCC to act. This technology exists. The threat is clear. People are being able to facilitate large-scale, complex financial, violent crime-related, drug trafficking criminal enterprises around South Carolina because they are able to work from behind prison to communicate with people outside the prisons, with Mexican drug cartels they're communicating with. They're able to harm children from behind prison walls. They're able to facilitate, violent acts against other people from behind prison walls because we can't add a simple sentence into a federal regulation. This is making South Carolina less safe, and so I'm calling on the grand juries. The 34th and 35th grand juries are calling on Congress to act and the FCC to act. You need to get your head out of your backside and do this now. It's time. Locking someone up doesn't make us safer as long as we have access to cell phones behind prison walls. What I would like to do real quick, I'm going to thank the members who are standing up here with me, and then I'm going to let the director for the Department of Corrections make a few brief remarks, and then Creighton, if you want to say a word or two. Sheriff, are you going to want to make a comment? I will. Okay. So I'm going to read real quick. As you can see, these are just some of the people who were involved in some aspect of any of these cases, and I want to thank them because when I talk about the state grand jury and the Attorney General's office, we are completely useless without the relationships that we have with law enforcement partners from across the state. Not just law enforcement partners, but as you can see, the South Carolina National Guard. So having these partnerships is vital to us protecting South Carolina families. So I first want to thank Chief Mark Keel with SLED, who could not be here today, but he sent some of his best and brightest, and I'm just going to read some that are here. From SLED, we have Captain Jason Wells, Tyler Sexton, and Scott Gardner. We have Anderson County Sheriff's Office represented today by Jonathan Velez and Josh Durham. The Greenville County Sheriff's Department members who participate in the Drug Enforcement Unit in the upstate, who's been vital to our efforts up there, Chad Maltby. We have, with the South Carolina Department of Corrections, and you'll hear from him in a minute, Joel Anderson, who has been there for many years, and his predecessor, Brian Sterling, really banged the drums on getting rid of cell phones in state prisons. Also from the Department of Corrections is the Inspector General Frank Kelly and a Deputy Cody Wilson. Collie Rushton is also present. We have a Deputy IG, Laura Casares. I hope I said that correct, Laura. We have the Governor's Army National Guard Counter-Drug Task Force, Sergeant Major Kathy Shaw, who I met when she was Specialist Shaw back in 1996 on my first day in the National Guard, First Sergeant Eric Cannon, and Sergeant Danielle Hall with the Counter-Drug Task Force. I want to thank them for being here. Obviously, we have Pickens County Sheriff's Department represented here today by Sheriff Tommy Blankenship, who is an incredible partner to me in the upstate. He is a law enforcement leader, and you're going to hear from him in just a moment. Sheriff Blankenship, thank you for your friendship and what you do for us in the upstate. We also have Lieutenant Andy Robinson and Agent Jeff Baldy, who are also from the Pickens County Sheriff's Department, and of course, my office. And I'm going to leave names off, but just a couple of names that I want to give a quick shout out to. Creighton Waters, who's our chief prosecutor down in the State Grand Jury Prosecution Division. Savannah Goud, who you just heard from a moment ago, who got 2 life. She and her team got 2 life without parole sentences. Walt Whitmire, another member of that team. David Fernandez, standing at the back of the room, should be up here with us, but he's back there, and he's been an incredible team member. And then also we have Margaret Scott and Stephen Lunsford, who are helping assist us at the Department of Corrections. There's probably a name I missed, and if I did, I apologize, but being the Attorney General of an agency with so many amazing people and getting to work with so many amazing people representing incredible agencies is probably the best part of my job. And so what I would like to do real quick is invite one of those great partners that I value, the Director for the Department of Corrections, Joel Anderson, to make a few brief remarks, and then we'll have 1 or 2 more comments, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, Director.
Good morning. I'm Joel Anderson. Everything that's been said this morning is tenfold with us. Jamming is the answer. We can't seem to get there. We do have a system in place with technology that allows us to disrupt probably about 75 to 80% of the communications on these phones, but it's not perfect. It's what we have and what we deal with. I do want to thank all the law enforcement. I want to thank everybody that's involved in this, and I want to thank our correctional officers for the work they do every day, because we find the phones, Frank and them take the phones, they get the information off phones, and all that information is passed forward. Without finding the phones first, we would sit here and just tumble in a way that we were before we had any kind of managed access system. But I appreciate everything that's said, everything that's done. I appreciate all the people that are involved, especially law enforcement, local, county, state. Everybody's been great with this thing. And Steve Lunsford and them have done a great job for us, and I appreciate all of them. Thank you.
Okay, and I would also like to invite, again, as I just identified him, Sheriff Blankenship from Pickens County to come up and make a few brief remarks. Sheriff.
General. Sheriff Tommy Blankenship, Pickens County. Did not plan on making any statements, but your call to action inspired me to say a few words. As a former narcotics officer, I spent the majority of my career working cases just like this. As a matter of fact, Family Traditions was a case that I spent many, many hours away from my family. And I have watched the men and women of my agency sacrifice and take risks to protect the citizens of Pickens County, only for those individuals to continue to be a threat to my citizens while behind bars. And I know that the General mentioned a call to action to those elected officials, but my call to action is to the citizens of South Carolina, those that put those individuals into those positions where they're going to make the decisions. Please reach out to your elected officials and let them know that you are tired of watching your public servants risk their lives to go out here and protect you, only to have those same individuals still be a recidivistic threat to society from behind bars. Thank you, General.
Thank you, Sheriff. And then finally, I was going to allow the chief prosecutor for the state grand jury, who is my quarterback down there, who is constantly handing the ball or throwing the ball off to these amazing people, to go after these people who are continuing to threaten the public safety of South Carolina. That's Creighton Waters. Many of you know him and are familiar with his work. And Creighton, again, I want to thank you for all of your hard work. Every time, it seems like every other week he's coming up with me to sign off on another state grand jury investigation or more indictments, and just the work that we're doing in the state grand jury and the prosecution division in general is incredible, and you're a major part of that. So, Creighton, I'll give you just a quick moment to make a few brief remarks.
Yeah, thank you, General, and thank you for that, and thank you for the opportunity. I think I have the best prosecution job in the state, because all of these that we've talked about here today are state grand jury cases, and you can see the kind of impact and the kind of difference that we can make. You can see how the state grand jury can bring together law enforcement and other resources to fight these battles. And really, we've been singing this tune about contraband cell phones for a while, but it ultimately occurred to us that we could no longer, in good conscience, send dangerous criminals to prison and tell the community that we had protected them when they were able to continue to run their criminal organizations as much as they ever did on the inside of prisons as they were on the outside. So what we did was partner with these agencies and partner with with SCDC to try to fight these battles and to try to end this type of criminal organization. And this is organized crime in the prisons. We realized that all our dope cases, all our gang cases were going back to leadership in the prisons, and we had to do something about it. These three cases illustrate individual points about that. They illustrate public corruption. They illustrate drug traffickers continuing to run drugs. They illustrate the amount of money that can be made by these inmates using contraband cell phones. And then, of course, they illustrate even harm to a child. And that should be a call to action. And the thing about this is that we've been bringing all these investigations to the state grand jurors, and that's one of the greatest parts I have. And I think we need to highlight the fact that it's a rare event for the state grand jury to issue a report. And we not only had one, but two state grand juries, the 34th state grand jury that was ending their 2 years of service and the 35th state grand jury ending their 1 year of service. And they wanted, the citizens who had been hearing all this information wanted to express what they were hearing in all these cases and how important it was that we get this jamming technology to put this to an end. The citizens who were hearing this information became incensed on their own by what they were hearing, and they made a public statement. So I encourage you all to read the state grand jury report and to understand why this issue is so important. Thank you all very much.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up by summarizing everything that everyone just said. If you are an inmate in prison or a correctional officer who's engaging in corrupt conduct, or you are a person outside of a prison and you are facilitating any criminal activity, be it sexual exploitation of a minor, drug trafficking, or any other financial crimes, and you're using cell phones with inmates behind prison, we are coming for you. We're going to put you in prison. You're going to be joining the other family tradition guys in prison for a very, very long time. So if you're out there and you're watching this right now and you engage in illicit cell phone contraband with inmates behind prison, we're coming for you, period, end of story. At this point in time, I'd be happy to take any questions that any members of the media may have. Mary?
As you mentioned, you, Director Sterling, have been talking about this for years at this point. Do you have any indication right now that Congress or the FCC are budging on the jamming issue, or is it the same as it's been?
It's like, I don't know, yelling into a wind tunnel. I mean, it just hasn't been a priority, and I've signed on to letters with AGs from around the country. It's bipartisan. I mean, it's a very unifying issue. I mean, Republicans, Democrats alike have been yelling about this, but for whatever reason, the people in Washington, D.C., who handle these federal regulations and the federal laws that govern the regulations just haven't acted yet. And again, real children are being hurt. Real communities are having fentanyl and meth and cocaine smuggled into them, supported by Mexican drug cartels and violent gangs. People are dying because of the work being done behind prisons with the use of contraband cell phones. So to your question, I have not seen a whole lot of movement. Director Anderson, I don't know if you have heard anything.
No, there's a lot of discussion right now, but it's all discussion, just like it was. Mr. Sterling was a champion in this, and he made his voice heard clearly. But there's just a lot of discussion right now, which is where it's been.
There's been some movement from the General Assembly to support these efforts at the state level. The funding, really only covered just one facility, and I'm kind of curious if the state legislators' efforts might have played a role in mitigating this, or if we're just kind of playing whack-a-mole with these types of operations with the whole state funding we have.
When you say state funding, Nick, you're talking about state funding for?
Cell phone interdiction in particular.
Okay, and I might let the director answer that question. I will say this, and then I'll let you answer that specific question. The real problem is that the FCC, the federal regulations, allow for the technology to be implemented in federal prisons. We want to add the word "and" state prisons. But right now, state prisons cannot buy the technology that federal prisons are currently using because those companies are prohibited. They'd be violating federal law if they did that. So that is where the fix needs to go. Now, the states obviously can provide funding for that whack-a-mole program, that managing program, but you're basically just managing a problem, not eliminating it. Do you want to?
I will. I'll tell you, currently we have 6 institutions in the managed access because of the funding that was given to us. And so they're all online. We have them across the state and most of our level 3s and heavy level 2s to where we capture the phones, capture the information, but it's on 6 now. We've asked for more money. We received more money, and we will be moving into other institutions this year.
Gotcha. And just curious too, as far as the individuals in this report, were any of them in facilities that had this technology, or?
I can answer
Yeah,
that.
go ahead.
So some of this conduct occurred before managed access was implemented. And then the answer to your question also is yes. But I will say this, we don't want to say, and you raise a great point, we need more money to SCDC to provide for managed access. It is the solution that we have right now, and we don't want to disparage it because it has been successful. Well, what we're trying to say is that it's complicated, it's expensive, and it's not foolproof, whereas we know the technology exists where a phone can be operational right here, and I can walk over here and it doesn't work anymore. And it is a complete elimination of, right out of the gate, 90% of the criminal organized crime that is occurring within the prisons can be done almost instantaneously.
I remember former Director Brian Sterling, now our acting U.S. Attorney, demonstrating where he picked up a cell phone and he was standing on this side of a door jamb and it was non-operational, and then he did this and he got a signal and then he stepped back in. But apparently certain lobbying groups in D.C. are fearful that if you implement this iron, I call it the Iron Dome, that's my term for it, but this Iron Dome over prisons that jams it's kind of in a bowl, that they're afraid that it will disrupt surrounding communities using that cell service. But we know that that's not the case because it's not happening with the federal prison system. Oh, yes, you had.
Yeah, can you explain a little bit about the process of issuing a grand jury report? You said that it's issued by the members of the grand jury. Can you sort of walk us through that?
So it's not something that happens all the time because of how busy the grand jury is and how reports can. There's only so much bandwidth. You see how busy we are. But, and Creighton, I'll let you make a comment if you want, but basically a grand jury report is when the grand jury, sometimes the grand juries will issue a report when they find something that is not indictable or criminal conduct, but it is problematic conduct and they want to expose it for the public to see. Sometimes while investigating a crime, they will identify government inefficiencies or problems within the bureaucracy of government that aren't really relevant to being indicted in a court of law. Or the criminal justice system, but they will want to expose those inefficiencies or expose that bad conduct that is, you can't prosecute your way out of every problem. Sometimes a grand jury report is the grand jury's way of saying, we are incredibly frustrated by what we're seeing over and over and over again, so we want to highlight this for the government actors at the federal or state level to do something about. So that is what this grand jury report is. We don't issue grand jury reports in every case, but this is one case. So these are several cases, multiple cases where 2 different grand juries came in and said, we're sick and tired of seeing the same problem over and over and over again and nothing's happening, and it's creating all these cases where criminal conduct's being perpetrated from behind bars. Did you want to,
Very quickly.
Quickly.
I worked with these state grand jurors, as you just heard, for as long as 2 years, me and my folks. And again, a grand jury report, the state grand jury can function sort of as the conscience of the community and sound that call where they've identified a problem. It is a rare thing to do, but I think it's a testament to the service of those grand jurors that they wanted to make this point public. And what will happen is that I worked with them and, of course, wrote the state grand jury report, but ultimately they vote on it just like they would vote on any indictment. And, of course, they actually, both grand juries were unanimous in voting on this particular, both of these grand jury reports.
And I like what Creighton said. When people think of a grand jury, they think of some bureaucratic governmental apparatus. It's 18 citizens from all over South Carolina, and 2 of those groups, so 36 citizens basically who were from all over the state, saw the same thing and voted unanimously to ratify or to endorse this report that they asked Creighton and his team to write, and they approved it. So this is the people speaking. This isn't just a bunch of prosecutors and cops up here barking about this. This is people in South Carolina saying enough is enough.
Maybe for Mr.
Well, right now, we have some people that will continue to do it. I'm not going to say that they won't. They won't try to manipulate staff to bring it in. They won't try to get it in. When they do, it's our job to try to find it as soon as we can. The jamming would stop all this, right? The managed access systems that we have in place, those McCoy brothers will be on those institutions where we manage all that. We capture all that. And although we can't capture it all, we'll capture 80% of it. And as we do, we'll build a case against them again, and then it'll come forward. But that's where we are right now.
If I could add to that, we fight the battles that we fight with the tools that we have. If we do nothing, nothing will happen.
Any other questions? Y'all are asking great. Yes, Mary?
Just for context or background, are y'all able to, tell us when the last time a state grand jury issued a report was?
Off the top of my head, I can't.
Yeah, it's been probably a decade, and I think the one that occurs to me that's a while ago was there was a grand jury report issued in the state grand jury case against former Lieutenant Governor Ken Ard. But these are rare events, and again, I can't express enough how awesome it is to see a collection of citizens who are called to Columbia for 2 years, and they become enthusiastic about wanting to be involved in the law enforcement and the criminal process, and they want to make their point heard. That is an amazing thing. It's an amazing part of our system. Our system is not perfect, but this is an example of it working well.
Any other comments? All right, well, I'm going to close this up by, again, thanking all of the individuals standing up here with me, to my left, right, and behind me, and the agencies they represented. And there are agencies and individuals who are integral to this war on drug trafficking and corruption and all the other illicit crimes we talked about today. They couldn't be here today, but there is an army of us here, represented by a few of us here today, and we are coming after those of you who continue to do this kind of stuff, and we're going to find you, and we're going to put you away for a very, very long time. At this point, I want to thank all of you, members of the media, for coming and telling the stories, because it's so important that the public hear this. At this moment, this concludes this press conference, so thank you very much. Who's
Great. Good job, Director. Thank you. Good job.
Tom? You got a minute for me?
You were bringing up family traditions. I was in our